And the UK box office number one
Yes.
is, of course, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah. Okay. Shall I go first?
You go first.
Okay. So I saw Queen live in Hyde Park in 1976 when they played that concert with, they were the top of the bill. It was Kiki Dee, because she'd been at number one with Don't Go Breaking My Heart, Supercharge, Steve Hillage, who played for like forever, as far as I remember, and Queen. And when Queen came on stage, they had to wait till it had gone dark because they had a light show. I was so overwhelmed that I burst into tears. I mean,
really?
Yeah. And so I was a huge Queen fan for the first. So I got Queen, Queen 2, Sheer Heart Attack, Night at the Opera, Day at the Races. And then I kind of lost it roundabout News of the World and Jazz. And then I, kind of found them again in later years through things like Radio Gaga. And so I was very, very invested, particularly in the early stuff. And what I thought, and you know that the film's had a terrible production history, director on, director off, director fired, Sacha Baron Cohen, Ben Whishaw, blah, 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 blah. And then we finally end up with Rami Malek, who I think is just absolutely terrific. So what I thought that it is absolutely true that the film takes huge liberties with the narrative in terms of where it places events and indeed songs. So, the first Top of the Pops appearance isn't Killer Queen. As we all know, it's Seven Seas of Rye. There's the Mott the Hoople tour, which isn't there before they go to all those things, blah, 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 blah. But I thought the great and moving around significant life events in relation to Live Aid, with which it begins and ends. For me, the great triumph of it was that even knowing all those things, I didn't care. I got totally swept up in the film, and on more than one occasion, I cried. And this is interesting because I went to see the film with my friend Matt, who made that Days of Our Lives documentary about Queen and was really, it knows everything there is to know about Queen. And Matt didn't embrace it in the same way as I did, because he had much more of a problem with the things that were changed, the things that were moved around, the way in which things were done. But there were many moments in the film when both he and I kind of went. You could feel particularly the Live Aid sequence is astonishing, but it's lovely moments like the details of the band bickering in the studio. There's one great moment when Freddie Mercury is doing this thing about how the rest of the band wouldn't be anybody without him. And he says, well, Brian, mate, he says, you just be an astronomer. And Roger said, well, you just be a dentist. And he says to John Deacon, I don't even know what you would be. I thought that was really well observed. So for all the things that are wrong with it, I thought there was so much that was right about it, not least that central performance and the individual portrayals of the characters. I thought it had an emotional truthfulness and yes, full of chubby hum moments, but I didn't mind them. I thought, and believe me, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it.
Emily Taylor in Coventry. I saw Bohemian Rhapsody last night in a rare night out with friends to celebrate my birthday. Cinema trips are few and far between since we had our two boys. Even now they're 5 and 3. I love Queen, a band I only discovered in my 20s, thanks to my now husband, then boyfriend. I was only born in October 85, so the height of Queen was very much before my time, although my parents were at Live Aid, where my mum was 6 months pregnant with me. If I had the opportunity to see any band live now, it would be Queen. The film totally overwhelmed me in the most powerful way. It was funny, beautiful, haunting, engaging, heartbreaking, powerful. From the opening to the closing, I was completely riveted by the story they were telling. The final set at Live Aid, which I've watched on DVD, I felt like part of the crowd, with that feeling in my belly of pure joy.
Yeah.
Steve Brenman. I can see why this film is number one. Like me, many Freddie and Queen fans will have been wanting to see a decent biopic, listen to their glorious music in fabulous surround sound, and enjoy the whole thing with the Queen caravan. Building up to our Friday night at the movies, my wife and I saw some of the desperately poor reviews, but reassured ourselves that at the very least we could savour the sounds. So how do we get on? Well, I'm struggling to think of a poorer all-round movie experience that I paid for in the last 10 years, maybe more. The direction and sequencing were awful. The acting, with the possible exception of Gwilym Lee, was dreadful.
Wait, Rami Malek is bad?
And
he's not. He's brilliant.
To my ear, Rami Malek's accent was like a reconstructed posh version of Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins. Almost every scene was cut short before the characters had a chance to really show themselves, and we both thought the representation of the gay community was horribly stereotyped, with a handlebar moustache, leather jacket and strides, look and characterised as untrustworthy and shifty. As for the hallowed and much anticipated musical treat, I can't think of one song that wasn't subject to the editor's knife, not one. Just as you got into it, the sounds, they were canned, until the final pretty convincing CGI Wembley Live Aid sequence where it all got a bit better. This film was unsatisfying in every way I could look at it. Movie fan, music lover, Queen admirer, time will never get back, stay away.
Okay, well, I'm sorry that that's how you felt about it. And I don't know whether I can claim, myself to be a Queen fan the same way as you are, except that when I was younger, I was utterly devoted to them. As I said, for the albums right up until Day at the Races, News of the World was the point at which I kind of lost it. I was really obsessed with them. And I liked the evocation of that period. I liked the stuff with Smile. I liked the, Keep Yourself Alive. I liked the portrayal of the way in which the band just... I said there are moments in which, John Deacon goes, all right, I've got this, boom, 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 ba-dum, boom, boom. I mean, that is a bit chubby hum, yes, but there were other moments when I thought it worked really, really well. And I all the way through, I was emotionally engaged, even when I knew that's not right. Why are you playing that song there? He's wearing the wrong outfit for that bit. That's not the correct topic.
Let me just do one more. Patrick Freer says, I chose the film having read the very mixed reviews purely on the basis that I could happily listen to Queen music for 2 hours and consider them well spent.
Yeah.
I was not disappointed in that regard. The objective shallowness of the film and lack of meaningful character development and almost patronising sanitisation of the singer's drug, alcohol and other abuses were brought into sharp focus by the fact that the last film I'd watched at the cinema was A Star Is Born, an altogether more fulfilling study into the characters' personalities and the realities and stress of life in musical entertainment. That said, Rami Malek was convincing in portraying Freddie's almost split personality, that on stage and that behind it. Whilst the film was essentially a dramatisation of Freddie Mercury's Wikipedia entry set to Queen's greatest hits.
That's so cruel.
I did enjoy it as far as it went, and it made me want to know more about the band and its members.
Okay, I think that's really harsh, but then I can hardly criticise other people for being harsh. So
okay, well we'll do more on this if there's time, but we have some important stuff to do. And what are the reviews coming up, by the way? Just
we're going to review.
Bohemian Rhapsody is the UK's number one.
Yeah,
Jordan Wellin in Boston, Massachusetts.
Yeah, as opposed to Boston, where?
Lincolnshire.
I stand corrected.
Okay. After taking a trip to my local Cineplex here in Boston to see Bo Rap, I was certain I'd open my podcast app to hear the legendary Mark giving another legendary rant about just how terrible the film is.
Didn't get it.
To my surprise, and yes, even horror, I was stunned to hear Mark giving the film a pass on nearly every level.
Yep.
As a gay man, I was frankly appalled by the gay erasure throughout the film. Even more offensively, every time the film hints at Freddie's complex sexuality, it's done so in a leering, finger-wagging way meant to shame him. It's as if the rest of the band were saints for putting up with it, quote, devious ways. The very moment Freddie opens up about his sexuality, he's portrayed as being depressed and hostile, and from that moment the film continues to punish him for it. Not one iota of the entire thing is believable, from the bad lip-syncing to the incomprehensible timeline to its egregious depiction of homosexuality. An insult to Freddie, an insult to his fans, and an insult to good cinema. I've got another one,
yeah,
do you want to answer?
Well, I mean, I have heard, and I do understand that criticism about it. That somehow what the film does is it sets up a duality whereby heterosexual normality, in inverted commas, is set aside non-heterosexual chaos, and there is this suggestion that there's and I have heard that argument, and I do know. I have gay friends who found the film very problematic. I have straight friends who found the film problematic on that level. I have to say I don't, because I didn't think that was what the film was trying to say. I think there's no question that you can read it that way. And I think there is no question that people have read it that way, and that's perfectly fine. I didn't. If I had read it that way, it would have really, changed my opinion of them, but I didn't. I do understand it, but it's not a reading that I share.
Laura Hudson, aged 37 and a half. It took precisely 1.5 minutes for me to forget that I wasn't actually witnessing Freddie Mercury in front of me. Such was the amazing performance of Rami Malek. Every jaw twitch and arm gesture was sublime perfection. In fact, Malek, Ben Hardy, Gwilym Lee and Joseph Mazzello all embodied Queen in a way I wasn't prepared for. And you could tell that the entire cinema felt exactly the same way and were well and truly caught up in the thrill of it. In one blissful moment, I looked across my aisle and saw that all 5 of us along the way were tapping our feet to the beat together, probably without even realising. I was only 4 when Live Aid took place, but it was replayed in my home by my father so many times that I know it by heart. And when that moment was featured, I could feel the hairs on my neck prickle, and it was all I could do not to leap out of my seat and sing along. Thank you, Laura. Number one movie is Bohemian Rhapsody.
I mean, that's what happened for me, is that it worked on that emotional level, and therefore all the things about the timeline being wrong, all the things about the liberties taken. I mean, not just liberties. I mean, outright falsifications. I was talking about this the other day about why is it that I've forgiven that film for things for which I've condemned other films, and the reason is because emotionally it worked. But to refer back to the previous email, I mean, that was really, really well argued, and it clearly makes sense. And I do know for a fact that people whose opinions I respect have shared that opinion, and that does give me pause for thought. Yes, it is definitely possible to read that as a completely legitimate reading of the film. That isn't how it struck me.
Suspicion.